Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
Hello.
Hey, Vivic, do you want to give mediating a go? No? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, you asked, asking for a clear demonstration or experiment cannot be done.
Right. And I remember asking him after that what experiment could be done.
Yeah, but that's not really what we're talking about, right? We're talking about whether or not that is a reasonable interpretation of what the objection to your question is, right?
Just run that by me again, because it seems like you're trying to blur the line.
Blur what line exactly?
Well, Where should we start? Should we start with his insults towards me through rule breaking, or are we going all the way back to that?
I mean, that doesn't seem relevant to what we're talking about, right? We're talking about whether
It
or
kind
not...
of does, because
Not
he's done it
really.
numerous times, but...
Yeah, that doesn't make it relevant. What we're talking about at the moment is whether or not you're genuine, right? Whether or not you're being genuine when you interpret other people's arguments, whether or not you're charitable, right? And your interpretation, right, of what it is that, what a good way to check, right? A good way to show the audience, let's say, right, that what he's talking about and proposing, right, is dumb and not true, right? Your
Right,
methodology.
so, wait, let me jump on the back of that, because you're wrong.
I wasn't even done. So your methodology for doing that, right, is to pose a question which is utterly ridiculous in its uncharitability, such as, well, if telepathy is real, right, tell me the first names of all of the people in the VC, right? So there's several assumptions built into that question, right? Which is for instance, right, the idea that, first of all, Joshua is a telepath, the idea that telepathy is something you can summon on command, the idea that that's the kind of information you can access with telepathy, right? But what you chose to do, right, was take what he was saying and frame it in such a way, right, that what you wanted to do was show people that he was being ridiculous by insisting that that is what he would have to do to prove that he wasn't. Do you understand why that's not charitable?
Yes, it was my opener to offer the floor to him to come up with his own idea of either test or example of how it could be proven.
Why would anyone put time into talking to you if you're going to be uncharitable about their idea?
I'm not uncharitable.
That's exactly what I just demonstrated. You are uncharitable. That is an uncharitable rendering. You insisted today in the text chat, right, that is there's nothing wrong with that question. You feigned ignorance, right, as to how your question is not charitable, and now you've admitted that you understand.
Asking him for an example.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
So if I ask part A of question, it doesn't matter what part B is?
It absolutely does not fucking matter how you follow up a straw man. No, you're not allowed to straw man people.
But while I've got your ear, how about we talk about the breaking of rules 2 and 5? Are they allowed or not allowed?
Yeah, I'm working on that, mate. I'm investigating. Okay. But we agree, right, that you are not charitable.
I thought I was being charitable.
What's charitable about the question you asked, right? How is that a charitable...
Taken on its own, yes, it sounds terrible. However, it wasn't on its own, was it? There was a whole discourse before that we'd spoken about.
Yes, and for you to come out of an entire discourse on the topic, right, and render his position in such an absurd way tells me that you weren't paying any attention to anything he said the entire time.
But I had been.
But you clearly hadn't, if you would render it like that. Are you not understanding what I'm saying? If you were listening, that idea, the way that you put it forward, the question...
It sounds like you're being not charitable to my whole position there.
Excuse me, the gotcha you asked him would have been off limits to you if you'd been listening. It doesn't even make sense.
Sorry, say that again. It broke up.
The gotcha that you asked him would have been off limits to you if you'd been paying attention to what he was saying. It didn't even make sense.
I was asking him that question to further understand
Oh
how
my
he was
god!
meaning.
We talked before the entire conversation, right? Before this comment you made was focused around discussing the problem space of telepathy, right? And what the issues are with asking for proof. You paid absolutely no fucking attention to any of that.
No, I thought that came after I asked the question.
No, definitely not.
I've had to repeat it over and over again to him, and he still doesn't get it.
I know. And he's of the opinion that he wasn't being uncharitable. And it boggles my mind how he could insist that.
Because
right?
I was asking it to try and get my head into the right space to understand how it works
Not
exactly.
really.
No,
Not
you
really.
weren't.
You're claiming that you know my own mind,
no one
aren't
thinks
you?
you were passive red. No one thinks you are because it's in evidence. It's in more evidence than you'd like to believe what your little fucking game is. It's in evidence for a lot of people. The only person who's not figuring it out is you. And you're very fucking stubborn about it.
Yeah, I don't even get it, honestly. It seems pretty easy to understand, right? You're a little biased, mate, against the idea. You think it's ridiculous, right? And then when you go to render it in a question, you make it sound ridiculous. Whoa, people don't do that. That's crazy. You couldn't have done that. That's not human. It's fucking, like, what's wrong with you? Are you not thinking carefully about what it is you're saying? Of course, you could have been uncharitable. Right? And I'm pretty fucking sure you were. I laid it out to you. There's no denial of it. That rendering is absolutely absurd. Right? Asking if telepathy exists, then prove it by naming by giving the first names of everyone in the VC. That is ridiculous. Very uncharitable.
Right.
But you don't agree.
I don't think it matters whether I agree or
not.
No,
passive. The problem is it for you, that sounded logical. That should tell you something about your science.
No, it didn't sound logical. I was trying to fucking... Oh, Jesus.
What sounded illogical about it? What was the issue?
No, I was asking it to try and set up a matrix, you might say, where I then say, okay, what example can you give?
Passive, listen to me, right? When someone asks a question like that, they are trying to frame the issue in a certain way for the audience. That's not hard to understand.
Well,
that's
he was failing to answer
that's
any
the key.
question
I want to hold on
until
this.
that point. Therefore, I threw that out there to try and get him to give an answer.
No, you didn't. It was uncharitable.
I did.
It was
I did. I'd asked him 5 or 6 questions prior to that, which he had refused to answer.
You're not tracking the entire course of the conversation then. He answered you many times and you repeatedly failed to...
answered me now.
Yes, he did. You repeatedly failed to hear what he has to say and repeat your stupid question without understanding how it is that it's been dealt with already.
I asked that question once, so I wasn't repeating.
That's not...
No,
yeah.
You guys... I want to stop it for just a moment because there's a particular behavior that Passive Red has repeated over and fucking over
I would
again
prefer that you don't psychoanalyze
I don't really
me.
care what you prefer. I really don't care at this point because you've gone across a line, a number of lines already. And this is what he does. What he does is he keeps reframing. He asks, instead of actually having the conversation with the other person, and you'll see this in Stormwind for the last hour, and it finally clicked in my mind what he's doing. He asks these questions. Am I not supposed to wait for evidence? Am I not? And these questions reframe the actual discussion. Correct. In relation to a rule set. Now, what I think has happened is he's growing up in a house where the rule set is number one. Everyone must obey the rule set. And that's the only way that anyone can get any respect. So now he comes into this community and he thinks that if he just plays by this rule set, regardless of the truth value, that will be okay. Now, what that means is that in his family, regardless of the real truth of the situation, they enforced the rule set and punished him and forced him to submit to that rule set to the point where he does not realize what the difference between the rule set and the truth really is. So I've been irritating him over that issue because he needs it.
When a person joins the server, what's the very first room that they go to?
Okay, how is that relevant? Well, we all know
Because
people
it's
have to...
the-
I
shut
just
the fuck
said
up.
something to
Shut
you,
the fuck up.
rules
Yeah,
are
shut the fuck
there.
up, Passive.
Respond to it.
As soon as you jump,
Respond
listen.
to it, Passive.
Yeah, listen, Passive. What we're not going to have in this conversation is we're not going to have you responding to questions with questions. Are we understanding each other?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm
Start
pointing out
responding.
the
Do I have...
basis.
Shut up for a
Start
second. Do I
responding
have...
to what
do-
I
yeah,
said.
Do I have
I am
your
responding to your question.
No, you're
No,
not.
I am
You
pointing
grew up
that the
in an
very first channel you come into is
You grew up in an environment where rules were number one, and you were taught to believe that if you just follow the rules, that everything would go hunky-dory. Well, it's not true. The truth is still the thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. If you
And
compromise...
that's where InSync and you disagree, because you don't understand that he knows that the truth is still the thing. And I think that the truth is still the thing. You're the only one who thinks the rules are the thing. And it's disgusting. And anyone on the server who actually believes that is going to pay for that, because I'm not going to stand by and let that go on.
And if you continue, right, to do the thing that has been made the objection, right, which is to try to reframe the issue with questions instead of addressing what it is that's been said to you, then you're not going to be able to speak. I'll mute you every time.
So
I think
what's the
he's earned a
question now?
ban, and he wants to be banned, and he needs to be banned in order to think about all this, because he doesn't want to learn from this. He just wants to shit disturb. And at this point, it's too annoying.
So do you understand? Do you understand the stipulation regarding you responding to what's being said without asking more questions to reframe the issue, Passive? Do you understand that?
I'm struggling to understand the question that you're asking me now.
I'm not asking you a question. I'm saying, do you comprehend what it is that was said, right, about you not responding with questions, but responding with your thoughts on what's been said to you?
Irrelevance to what? Previous actions?
In
months
relevance
ago, or this one?
to exactly what was said to you, right? Something said to you. You in this conversation, you have to respond to what's said. You can't reframe issues with questions. I'm not going to allow it.
Well, I've taken on board what you've said.
I appreciate that. So, okay. So what we're talking about, right, is the idea that you consistently try to frame issues in a certain way for the benefit of the audience rather than actually ethically engaging in a dialogue with the other person where you listen and respond.
Right fucking on. Right
But if
fucking
somebody's
on.
claiming truth, don't they have to evidence why it's factual?
Did you just
Don't
ask me a
you?
fucking question? Did you just ask me a fucking question? What the fuck
Yeah,
did
you
I
did.
say?
Sorry, I assumed we were in discourse. As in
Well, we're not
talking.
in it. We're not in a dis. Yeah, we're
It's
not in a
your
Okay,
neurosis.
preach to me. Tell me everything. I'll just be silent.
Shut up,
Do
Passive.
you think that I don't know what you're doing, man? Is that what you think?
I'd
That
like
is
to
what
know
he
what you
thinks.
think I'm doing because all I'm trying to do is defend myself.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Which I have the right
Same
to.
little game.
The
Same
very
I'm
first
sorry.
room you come
Passive.
into is
I'm
Rules
sorry.
Channel
Wait a
that
minute. I'm
tells you the
confused.
rules
Shut the fuck
categorically.
up. Shut the fuck up about that, all right? I'm confused. How is it the case? How is it the case, right, that I tell you exactly what it is you're doing? I tell you the objection, right? I
Well, you're saying I'm
articulate.
disingenuous.
Shut the
but I
fuck
struggle to
up.
understand why.
Shut up. I articulate very clearly, right, what it is you're doing that is a problem, right? And then you say to me, I don't even know what the problem is. How does that fucking happen? Explain that to me.
Exactly.
Like, are you 12? Can you not hear me? Are you deaf? What's going
He
on?
is fucking 12. There
What-
is some
what's going
12-year-old in
on?
him.
Well, I'd like to know why you're making it ad hominem, but aside
Why
from
I'm
that,
asking you,
Oh,
what
shut
the
up with the
fuck is
rules,
going
Passive.
on?
no,
What's
you're
going on?
confusing
Shut
me
up
on
with
which
the
issue you're
rules.
telling me off
Shut up
for.
with the rules and try to understand what's being said.
I'm trying
If you
to,
really
but
want
you
to,
keep
you're not
jumping in
trying.
and throwing
Okay, so
shit.
wait, no,
You
how
do
about
not
this?
try.
How about this? If you're trying, Passive, why don't you try instead of asking a question to reframe what was said? As soon as someone finishes speaking to you, you repeat in your own words what was said to you and don't ask a question. How does that sound?
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. So what I said before, right, is that the issue revolves around your habituation, right, of a certain behavior. The behavior is that you compulsively, when you're engaged in a public discussion, reframe the issue for the purposes of swaying the audience rather than thinking clearly about what's been said to you, evaluating the truth value, and responding ethically in a dialogue. Instead, what you do is you monologue against an opponent in public. That's what you do, right? Repeat that back to me.
Apparently, I changed the argument to straw man for the audience's sake, even though it's only myself that I'm arguing for.
Well, the one thing that I heard was the compulsive portion, because everything else I'm tracking is just more the compulsive word that you use and what you just described and saying that's where I'm getting hung up on. That's the only portion. And, you know, me coming in here as an outside observer, that's all. It's just when you just described this, it was the compulsive portion that I got hung up on.
You'd have to know him to know how compulsive it is.
Yeah. If you'd seen it like in continuation, you would have an idea of what I'm talking about, right? It seems like it could be circumstantial if you don't have any context. But what you've got to understand is that this is a repeat of a conversation that happened over a month ago, right? Where Passive Red was repeatedly, in the space of 3 or 4 days, taught the same lesson, and he's failed to internalize it. And the reason he's failed to internalize it is because whenever you have the conversation with him, he insists on arguing with someone who isn't there.
What?
You argue with someone who isn't there. You ask questions unrelated to what the other person fucking said. You're talking to a ghost, man.
Exactly.
I think the last conversation we had, I was trying to point out that I was
what did
trying
I
to
just
clarify.
say? What did I just say?
Oh my god, he can't even respond.
What did I just say?
What do you want me to respond to?
I want you to repeat what I said, remember?
I've already repeated it once. I don't know why I need to
just
repeat
said
it a
something
second
different.
time.
I said it a different way. Repeat what I said.
I didn't hear you then.
Okay, excellent. At least we established that, right? You didn't hear me because you were thinking about what you were going to say next, right? One of the things about listening, Passive Red. I don't know if you know this, bud, but there's a passive kind of listening and there's an active kind. You fucking suck at active listening. You do not internalize what other people fucking say to you. So what I said was, as a consequence of the thing I just fucking said, right, that you don't internalize what other people say to you, when you're in an argument, you argue with a ghost. That's a metaphor to express the idea, right, that you're arguing with someone who isn't there because you ask questions that are unrelated to what the other person who's in the dialogue with you has said, right? So you're not talking to them, you're talking past them. Now, can you repeat that? Is that possible?
I speak to ghosts.
Oh, fuck me. Are you serious?
Oh, come on. What
You
he
better
said
do
was
a better
pretty,
fucking job. No.
What he said was pretty basic there. I mean, like, I've been on your side for
Come
this
on.
past thread, but come on.
But
What he
I
said is
speak
kinda
past
fair.
other people. I think about the argument later on. I don't listen to what they're actually saying. I mean, yeah.
You have never listened to what I actually say, and you expect me to take it seriously.
You haven't. I've never seen you do it.
Like the first interactions
don't
we
know
had,
yourself,
I thought
Passive Red.
don't.
Passive
Passive.
Red. Let me
You
ask
don't
you
know
this. Let me
yourself.
ask you this. Why do you think I'm successful at running this community? Right? It's because I'm really good at tracking what other people are thinking. When you've been in arguments with Joshua, I've listened to the things you say. You do not fucking track him. Not at all. You don't even fucking try. And when I've tried to express to you the reason that you have difficulty tracking him, you don't fucking listen to me either.
Well, I don't understand how this all came about, because he initially said he wasn't going to interfere with me. I thought, fine, that's okay. I then had a conversation.
How is this relevant? How does that relate to what I said? Right? I just fucking
Because
said.
this is how we've got to this point.
Shut up! I just fucking said some things to you, right? And you're asking, how did this happen? I don't fucking care how it happened. Shut the fuck up about how it happened. How about you respond to what I said?
Well,
No,
then
you
I
can't, 'cause you weren't
apologise for
fucking
speaking
listening.
to ghosts.
No, because you weren't. Yeah, you weren't really listening.
No, I'm saying I apologise for speaking past people and having this issue
So what are you
previously
gonna do
where you
about
think
it?
I'm disingenuous.
Yeah, what are you gonna do
I've
about
been
it?
honest whenever I've asked a question.
Oh, fuck me. You can
You
be
don't
honest.
think I have,
Dude,
but
shut
I
the
honestly
fuck
have been.
up. Shut up. You can be honest, right, in actually wanting an answer and still use the question dishonestly in a public setting. Are you fucking familiar with that idea? You can have an honest
I've never
curiosity.
done philosophy, so
It's not
excuse me,
philosophy.
I might be wrong.
It's not philosophy. It's not philosophy.
Oh,
What we're talking
what is
about
it then?
we're talking about psychology, right? We're talking about the fact.
All right,
that-
psychology.
that-
I
shut
don't
up
know
for a
psychology.
second. We're talking about the simple fact of human nature, right? That you can have an honest curiosity with a malicious undertone. Everybody can have that. That's not uncommon, right? What is so fucking alien to you about admitting that you have flaws?
I've never had an issue with admitting flaws.
And yes, that's where this is all coming from, right? Because when you get into a debate, all you care about is how you look to the audience.
I disagree with that.
Well, I agree with that.
I don't know how you could
Okay,
disagree with it.
if
If the people you talk to feel like you're not speaking to them, right? That you're speaking to some imagined opponent in your head, right? And that you're making a mockery of the straw man, right? Then how is it that you can say, no, I'm not speaking to the audience, I'm speaking to my interlocutor, right? Don't they have to agree? If someone tells you that you're not listening to them, are you allowed to insist that you are? I don't fucking think that's how it works, man.
I don't know
Neither
what
do
an interlocutor or whatever.
Look, if you don't fucking understand what I've said in my mind, right? I know what I said. If you, in my opinion, didn't understand me, you can't insist that you did. Right? You can't continue.
I don't know what that word is. I was asking you.
I don't care. What it means is someone who you argue with, but that's not really relevant, right? That's a tangent, right? What I'm saying is that you insistently frame arguments a certain way to make your opponent look foolish without even really hearing what they are saying. I don't know how that's hard for you to hear, because it's actually pretty simple. Right? It's actually something lots of human beings do. You should be able to identify it in other people, then infer, right, that you're a human being too, and it could be happening to you because they don't seem to know when it's happening to them. These are all mental considerations you could be making, but instead you decide to come on here and make a fool of yourself trying to defend an idea that doesn't even make sense, right? Everybody knows what this is. Everybody who's had an interpersonal relationship is familiar with this behavior. How can you think it's invisible? I'm curious. That's actually a question. How can you think that this is invisible?
I've never thought it was invisible. I am just me. I'm not trying to.
So you're saying there's nothing to you, right? That you don't admit to, right? That's what you're saying.
In what regard?
In regard to there's fucking shit about you that you do, you can't explain, you do it for bad reasons, and I doubt you're fucking honest about it. Do you hear me?
Well, you can doubt me,
I've
but
been
I'm
telling
being
you
honest.
that over and over again, Passive.
That's
well, I apologize if that's how it came across. That's not my intention or meaning.
Oh, dude.
No,
what did I say? I said I'm not talking about how it comes across, right? I'm making an assessment of the state of affairs. I'm saying in the conversation, no matter what you've said, right? Regardless of all the content, right? The way that you respond, the methodology you use to interact with what I've said tells me you don't fucking listen to me, right? And when I make that objection clear to you, what you say is, I'm sorry it seems that way to you. What a fucking piece of shit thing to say. Who the fuck says that, right? I'm sorry it seems that way to you? Fuck you.
I thought we had a conversation about my psychological problems before, though.
It doesn't matter, right?
No?
How does that justify what you're doing?
I'm not justifying.
That's what it sounds like.
I'm explaining. I'm trying to explain.
It's always justified rather than try to understand the other person.
I'm trying to understand you. That's why I'm asking those questions.
No, you have never tried.
How do you tell? Passive, how do you determine if you're actually genuinely trying to understand someone? Right? How do you determine that?
Me? I take an interest. I ask questions.
Okay.
That's
So, how do you determine whether or not your questions are genuine?
The fact that I asked them, and there's absolutely no reason
so
not to be genuine.
basically what I'm hearing is you have absolutely no epistemological insight into the kinds of things that you might be doing to compromise a conversation, right? You've never even thought, right, that you might have behaviors, right, that make it impossible for other people to get along with or agree with you. Does that not fucking occur to you?
It does occur to me, yeah.
Apparently
it hasn't
not.
occurred to you very hard, really.
Yeah,
it hasn't occurred to you very much.
Fucking hell, dude.
It hasn't really sunk in at all.
Passive, do you know how many times you've apologized in this conversation? And do you know why you apologized? Because that wasn't even a proper apology. That was because you've got an audience and you want to be like, I'm not the bad guy here.
It's all a game you were taught in your family that you've become accustomed to, and you don't even see what it is.
No, the reason why I hold the rules to account because
No,
that's
it
the
isn't
very first
passive.
page you go
It
to.
was what you were taught as a child.
That's literally it.
It's obvious. You can't be that unconscious of what you're doing if it wasn't.
Okay, throw out more ad
drummed into
hominem.
you.
That always wins, doesn't
It's
it?
not an ad hominem. You can't possibly be this unconscious unless it was drummed into you. You can't possibly. Someone had to abuse you continually with this sort of strategy. There's no way you could be this unconscious of it. There's just no way. I've never come across anything like that. Only if someone's been continually abused with that kind of ideology, which is the rule set is everything. The truth doesn't matter at all.
So you're able to go back to my childhood and
Yeah,
infer
yeah,
that,
I
but
can.
I'm not allowed
I
to go
can.
back to the
Can I
rules
just
on the
say-
first page.
Passive.
That's so
Right.
You understand how you're doing the framing thing again, right? Like,
I'm doing it purposely here, yeah, because I want
Oh,
nothing to do with
Kinda
that
what he's
guy.
doing.
we just achieve consciousness. I think we got consciousness. You do it purposefully. Yeah, no fucking kidding.
If you don't want to listen to synchronicity,
That's
then
kinda
listen
like what
to
he's doing.
in-sync.
He's just kind of like.
That's what I'm trying to do, but somebody keeps on interrupting.
No, but you're not even listening to in-sync.
I am.
No,
Bro,
you're not.
if InSync says you're not,
Passive, do you remember when you first come to the server?
I do.
Back in September.
Yeah. Do you remember me and you's conversation, like in voice chat?
I remember we had an argument over something.
Do you remember what that was about? What did I say? That was the first time I ever heard you talk. What did I say? Because that's
I
relevant to
honestly
this.
don't remember.
Okay, I'm going to tell you because I remember.
Yeah.
The first time I ever heard you talk, you was talking like this, in this accent, with this tone of voice, to everybody in the
condescending.
fucking room. And I had a problem with it, and I said, you need to check your tone. What the fuck is that about? And we had an argument about your tone of voice, because it was condescending. Do you remember now?
Fucking condescending.
And I
Fucking
basically said to
condescending.
you I was speaking
That
that way
guy's
because
pure
it was presented
condescending.
now.
passive. So
That
what
was the
happens?
first time I ever heard you talk. And now
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at where you are now. Same
Yeah.
fucking
People
place.
hear it.
But
People
Amelia,
hear
if
it,
you
you
remember,
idiot.
it was
Passive.
because
People
the words
hear
I
it,
was
you
trying to
fucking
say,
idiot.
I was struggling to say.
Passive.
People hear it, you fucking idiot.
Yeah,
People
I have to. I
People
have
hear
to.
it in 5 minutes, you fucking idiot.
I'm curious,
That's
passive.
fine,
right?
but-
No, shush.
People hear it.
I'm curious, passive, right? When Amelia tells you that she identified this to you months and months ago, right? And you recognize that she did identify it, right? And then you recognize that the complaint has repeated itself in this space, but I'm sure in your other relationships again and again, right? How do you explain that to yourself? Tell me what your internal representation of that is. Right? How do you explain? No, I'm not quite done. How do you explain the theme of the objection being exactly the fucking same every fucking time?
Well, the very first conversation I had with Amelia, I did.
How do you
Apparently
explain?
come out-
How do you
Answer.
explain the theme of the objection being the exact same every time? Right? I know what answers sound like. That wasn't an answer. How do you explain it? Give me your account of that fucking shit. Because that is anomalous. The idea that other people repeatedly conjecture the same objection to your behavior, but it's not true, that would be an anomaly. You would have to have an explanation for it.
No,
You don't.
That was a different argument
No,
we
it's the
had,
same-
harder than
it's
everyone
the
which was
same-
sorted out.
Shush. It's not a different argument. It wasn't
It
sorted
was.
out. It's not
She
She
a
was
different
saying I was
argument.
being condescending to other
It's the
people, and I
same
was
thing.
arguing
It's the
that I
same
was struggling
objection.
to pronounce certain words,
No,
as I
Same
do.
objection.
no, you're not understanding.
Same
it's the same.
objection.
It's the same
It's
objection.
why I objected to you and your bullshit.
It's a tone thing. You don't get it. It's not just in the tone of your voice. It's in the tone of your fucking thinking. Other people can hear it. Right? Why do you think I mentioned that I track what people are thinking, dude? Because I can fucking detect that condescending tone in your thoughts. Seriously, how is that a fucking nebulous idea in your mind that other people might be able to? That other
what he
people
does
might,
is he explains every instance where people project this fear they have and this sense they have of what he's doing. He explains it away in every instance, so he doesn't actually think about the problem of the pattern of a number of people who are sharp and intelligent who see what he's doing. So he just explains it away. In every instance, he finds a way to.
I just don't understand how he thinks that other intelligent adults aren't going to connect the dots, right? We don't live just in the present, right? We can see what you've done historically and correlate it with what you're doing now and tell you that for the entire time you've been in the space, multiple people have had the same objection to you independently. That is an anomaly. Now, you have to explain it to me, or my inference is going to be that the reason the same objection is leveled against you again and again is because the objection has merit. That's not unreasonable of me, right? If you get the same fucking complaint, maybe it has merit. Maybe, right? So you tell me how you explain to yourself that the pattern other people see in you doesn't exist.
Well, I didn't see it, but you might be right on that.
No, explain to me how you explain to yourself that it doesn't exist when you repeat, like, so this conversation has gone on for like an hour, right? So we've been talking for an hour. Only now have you even said, I might be right. So it's been an hour. How did it take an hour, right? That is a stipulation of epistemology. I might be wrong. Well, that is fucking 101.
I'd say that the conversation has moved from what we were first initially on, but
it hasn't moved. True. It hasn't moved. We moved upwards. Okay. It became meta. That's what happened in an attempt to illustrate to you, right, how it is that an explanation of what you're doing now will never cut it. Because if we bring in the fact that it's a pattern, your explanation of now doesn't make as much sense anymore, does it?
Yeah, because like what I took from this was at this moment we're talking about his tone.
Yeah, but the tone of his thinking has been the objection the entire goddamn time.
Okay.
And I said it repeatedly.
See, the thing, Vivi, is you don't want to convince Passive Red that it's about a rule. That's not how you appeal to his issue, because it's not about the rules. It's about the truth value below the rules. If you just play like a cool cat, and you're not really a cool cat, well, the thing is that you can pretend you're a cool cat, and there are people that Passive Red pulls this shit with, and he gets away with it. Obviously, there are going to be, because he is good at what he does to some degree. But the thing is that on a server,
stay on the topics. Sorry.
Yeah, the topic is on the server. There's a string of evidence. So even if you didn't figure it out the first time, like the first time I heard Passive Red, I had doubts because I liked the tone. I liked the sense of reasonableness. So it convinced me to give him the benefit of the doubt. But whenever I actually heard him speak, there was this contradiction I would hear. And the contradiction just grooved and grooved and grooved to the point where I really couldn't take him seriously anymore. And he couldn't understand why I couldn't take him seriously. So that irritated him. So we would keep amplifying. And we amplify to this point. And whether this makes any difference or not, I don't know. Because
let me repeat that exact same experience, right? When I first met you, Passive, I liked the tone as well, right? I didn't initially see the condescending tone in the thinking. Amelia is a bit sharper than me in her ability to see that kind of thing, right? I like to believe in people. I like to believe in the part of them that wants to be the noble person they could be, right? But when I listened to you talk to someone whose argument threatened your worldview, right, it was extremely clear to me that you don't know how to take criticism if the criticism would compromise your identity in some way. You've got no fucking clue. And as soon as someone starts giving you that kind of criticism, you switch off, and it becomes a game of which of us can look more right, and that's disgusting.
I totally agree. That's what I see as well.
That does also seem kind of natural.
It doesn't matter how fucking natural it is disgusting. It does not fit this server. It doesn't fit the idea of a debate, a dialogue, philosophy. These things, this attitude that Passive Red has, it is anathema to these things.
VV,
So
he's
moving
100
forward,
times
what's-
worse than you. 100 times worse.
So
Whereas VV, you'll at least stop and you'll go, well, what does this mean about me?
Exactly.
Passive Red doesn't do that.
He
doesn't know
doesn't.
how to do
He doesn't.
Well,
Yeah, as soon as he would have to stop and ask himself what it means about him, that is the trigger to avoid that thought pattern, because he consciously avoids it.
I don't know though, like after we had that altercation, the thing I liked about Passive Red's response at that time was when the room was cleared and there wasn't many people in it, he come back in the room and it was only me and him, and he apologized and he explained that he has been in therapy and you told me why and all that kind of stuff, and you said sometimes that you are afraid. I don't know if you remember you doing that, but I liked that apology. It was genuine. It was genuine, Passive. And that's why I continued to talk to you afterwards. And that's what you need to do now. You need to have that same reflective thing now and not just think, oh, I'm being attacked. I need to do anything to make myself look good. You just need to reflect properly, like you did then.
To be fair, I probably didn't make the situation better by wanting to record this, right? Because now he feels like an extra incentive, right, to preserve his image.
If I take a break for a short while?
That's fine.
Yeah, I'll
Maybe
be back in like an hour.
when we come back, we won't record anything. We can just pick up the discussion.
Feeling time that Jung is thinking of the real world in. The only way you resolve the paradox is by calling it acausal. I think that's not a good resolution. If you believe that the universe is coherent, and that's always my first assumption, something truly remarkable has to happen for me not to believe that. Nothing's ever contradicted that first principle, and I doubt anything ever will. And so then the question is to look for what's the framework? What's the logical framework?
If you're pragmatic, aren't you more susceptible to like intuitions? Like, you know how if somebody doesn't have an overview, they have an intuition, and like they're intuitively wrong most of the time if they don't have an overview.
Oh, of course. It's not a very... So the point of convergence is the crazy long run. We're not talking about even my lifespan. We're talking over hundreds of years with a large number of people trying to...
Right? So could you tell me what's the difference between God and the laws of logic?
The laws of logic are abstractions about the nature of the external physical world, and that they conform to certain abstractions. But the only reason why they conform that way is because God is the creator and sustainer of them.
Okay, so are they the subjective abstraction, or are they the thing that God?
No, all entities equal themselves and cannot equal their negation.